What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. Every May, while most of the world welcomes spring with flowers and barbecues, Russia performs a different kind of ritual. It exhumes the ghost of Joseph Stalin, dusts him off and parades him around like a national treasure. But 2025 brought something special. A decree from Vladimir Putin himself to rename Volgograd airport, kinda, rename it, to Stalingrad. Sort of, technically, but not really. Because you see, the name is supposed to honor Stalingrad without actually changing the airport's legal name. It is as if someone wants to aesthetic of totalitarian nostalgia without the legal paperwork. And so, welcome to Russia 2025, where Stalin is not just a ghost of the past, he's a political tool, a symbol, a scarecrow, and sometimes a weapon. And I mean, we are talking about Joseph Stalin, the guy who killed dozens of millions of his fellow countrymen. The only reason he is not compared to Hitler in Russia is because the Soviets won the war and the Allies. And as we all know, the history is written by victors. Imagine different outcome of the Second World War and Germans are now erecting statues in the name of Adolf and renaming everything in honor of the Third Reich. Well, that is precisely what Putin wants to do in modern Russia. Just different name, but very same story. And here is the question that cuts through the smoke and mirrors. Are we witnessing the return of real Stalinism, or just a grotesque cosplay version with less blood and more bureaucracy? Spoiler alert, whether it is truly returning or not, it is not the masses who need to worry, who need to fear. It's the elites, the Russian elite. Let's talk about this episode of Black Mirror, which apparently was filmed, I guess, in Russia itself. Let's begin where this theater of absurd usually does. The symbolism. Renaming an airport is the Russian version of deep policy reform. What better way to invigorate national pride than slapping the name of one of history's most controversial mass murderers into the gateway to your own city? The airport does not actually get renamed, once again, it just sort of gets a new nickname. Why? Because even the Kremlin does not want to be legally accountable for its own nostalgia. It is a PR stunt that screams, we remember the glory, but please do not make us to commit. But this reanimation of Stalin is not just about statecraft aesthetics, it's about selective memory, and you will see, very selective. Stalin is not being brought back as a man who signed off to genocide, famine and terror. No, of course, no way. He's the guy who beat the Nazis, who built the factories, who ruled with an iron fist that conveniently never seemed to tremble. They package him as the tough Georgian grandfather who might have spanked you, sure, but he kept the house clean and the wolves out. Never mind that the wolves were usually imaginary and the spanking were the bullets for usually innocent people. And guess what happens next? Another round of debates about renaming Volgograd itself back to Stalingrad. As if the problem in Russia today is not the war, not the economy or the repression, but what to call a city. It's not policy, it's pure distraction, but a very useful one for the regime of Putin. Because while the public is busy arguing over the names, the regime is quietly sharpening its knives. Let's not forget what this mythology serves. It makes repression justified, it makes silence patriotic, and it makes fear look like strength. War is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength from 1984 kind of stuff. Very similar, as you can see, just different names. You glorify a butcher and suddenly the cleaver is in your own hands and it does not look so bad anymore. Stalin is the original get-out-of-jail-free card for authoritarian regimes. Anytime somebody dares to raise a voice, they can point to him and say, well, at least we're not that guy. And just like that, they become him. Putin becomes Stalin, what I try to mean here. The real message is not about Volgograd, it's about a victory in World War II. It's about submission, it's about control, it's about planting a flag of fear in every airport, city and conversation. Because if you can romanticize Stalin, you can justify anything. But ironically, the ones who should fear the most of the return of Stalin are not regular people, it's the oligarchs. Putin's inner circle and the Kremlin's elite. And you will see exactly what I mean in the next chapter. Most people imagine that authoritarian regimes crush the little guy first, and in many cases, well, that is the truth. But Stalin flipped that script upside down. Under his rule, the most dangerous position you could hold was a seat at the table right next to him. The higher you climbed, the more likely you were to fall, and by fall I mean disappear inside the Kremlin's basement. He did not just purge a few disloyal generals, he cleared out entire command structures, wiped out institutions, and treated his inner circle like a rotating hit list. Let's get even straight to the point. Being Stalin's right-hand man was literally a death sentence on a silver platter. The clock was always ticking. He did not care how loyal you were. He did not care how much blood you had spilled in his name. Loyalty did not matter, only suspicion did. One bad rumor, one jealous rival, one misinterpreted glance, and that's it was over. That kind of madness is not just tyranny, it's political cannibalism built on fear and paranoia. And now Putin seems to be sniffing the very same scent of paranoia. I mean, sure, we are not yet in 1937 and nobody's holding show trials in the Bolshoi Theater, but watch closely. The top brass of the military cleaned out. Shoigu, Sulikov, Ivanov, sure, they are alive, but the propaganda machine works as hard as possible to make them completely insignificant, not even worthy of news in case of their unexpected but familiar style passing. Same goes for business elites like Vadim Mashkovich, once protected by their billions and loyalty, and now arrested, charged, and thrown into the meat grinder. This is not about justice, it's about thinning the herd before it realizes that it is being haunted. It's not just generals and billionaires either, it's judges, governors, energy tycoons, anyone with enough power or money to start fantasizing about a world without Putin in it. One by one, they are getting picked off. Sometimes it's corruption charges, sometimes it's tax evasion, sometimes it's vague accusations of betrayal. But the outcome is always the same. Disappear, get stripped of assets, become a ghost, and sometimes become a ghost quite literally. It's a message sent loud and clear. Power is not permanent. Position is not protection. You are never safe. Because if the king fears you, you die. Simple as that. Now let's see if Putin can actually match Stalin. Let's be clear. Putin cannot build a Gulag archipelago even if he wants to. He does not have the manpower, the ideology, or the population density of worthless peasants to burn through. Stalinism is not just a vibe, it's a logistical operation that requires millions of expendable lives, complete isolation, and a self-sustaining cycle of terror. Russia today has none of that. Kinda. What it has is a high-tech surveillance system, a deeply cynical public, and an elite that knows a little bit too much. Stalin did not need facial recognition or encrypted chat apps. He had fear. Raw, unfiltered fear. Putin has to work harder. He has to spin narratives, stage performances, feed propaganda into every single screen. So what does he do then instead? He mythologizes the purge. He invokes Stalin's name as a cultural vaccine. Inject a little fear to build immunity to dissent. Arrest a few, parade them through the courts, and then, well, call to justice. You don't need 1 million prisoners if you can make 1 million people feel like prisoners. The myth works because it's useful. It turns history into a threat. It says, we could be worse. It says, count your blessings because you are only being monitored, so be thankful and go on with your misery lives. It rebrands the entire silence as wisdom and obedience as patriotism. But let's not forget, it's also fragile. The more you rely on myth, the more brittle your regime becomes. Because myths do not solve real problems. They do not feed the people, pay the soldiers or build drones. And when the myths run dry, then what comes next? Here is the ultimate irony. The elites who thought they were untouchable are now living in fear. They were the kulaks of the 21st century, fattened by the system, protected by the connections, confident that their summer homes in Sochi would shield them away from any incoming storm. And now, they are being carved up like Thanksgiving turkeys. Big, juicy, enough to feed the entire family of new money oligarchs. Until they start flying too close to the sun, burn their own feathers, and become somebody else's dinner. The cycle repeats in perpetuity. And why wouldn't Vladimir Putin go after them? They have everything: assets, power, money, visibility, and most importantly, they can be robbed without international uproar. Arrest a journalist and there is a storm across all social medias. Arrest a billionaire and the public cheers. Hooray! Another rich clown who stole from us goes to jail. It is the distribution of fear, plain and simple. This is not just about paranoia, it's about consolidation. Putin is aging, his grip is slipping, he is not immortal and he knows it. Every arrest, every asset seizure, every fall from grace or from a window is a preemptive strike against the future. It's about making sure that when he does go down, no one else is strong enough to rise. And that's what makes it all so chilling for the Russia's elite. That's their biggest dilemma and paradox at the same time. That's what makes them being so paranoid at the same time as well. The real threat is not to the dissents, it is to the loyalists, because when Putin looks for threats, he does not look down, he looks sideways. And don't you even dare to make him look up, because there should be no one above the Tsar. Well, there you have it, guys. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. If you wish to support my work, there are links down below, for example my Patreon, where you can see these episodes in early access, and there's also additional chapter in the end of each episode. Once again, the link is down below. Thanks so much for watching. See you tomorrow.
We won't succumb to their tricks, the facade they try to sell. Their twisted words and feeble claims on us all they cannot quell. We see through their lies, their feeble attempts to sway. We do not believe in ridiculous Russian propaganda.